Play.
People.
Why is it? I'm having technical difficulties again, guys.
People
Bear with me.
believe that the paranormal and science are separate. But what they don't know, that they are both joined together as one. Join Ben and Louisa on their quest as they bring together science, occult, and the paranormal, only on Occult, History, and Science with Ben and Lou.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is that time again. It's Sunday evening. And this is the occultology show. Yes, I can't be bothered to say the science bit because I'm getting lazy. We don't do this. Yeah, I've said that. So. Yes, tonight we are talking everything Bigfoot. We have old friend on, Bob Antone, which is this side. Hello there. We have a new guest, Vince. I'm sorry, Vince, I cannot pronounce your name. I've been practicing all day to pronounce your last name.
It's Ynzunza.
That's the one. And then, last but not least, he's here. He's half alive and dead, but Damien is here.
You all right, Bob? You all right, Vince? How you doing?
Hello.
You all right?
We're good. You all good? We all settled in?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I was doing as I was told because I've been told to work on a new background and I got a bit caught up. Sorry, my bad.
Don't even do it.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got time.
Yes, guys. Tonight we're talking about Bigfoot. We do have Bob, the house expert, on the show.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Wearing the coolest T-shirt I've ever seen in my life.
Thank you.
Good to have you back on. Again, hello to everyone in the chat. So we have Kate in the chat, as always. I'm really having technical difficulties in a minute.
It's your fingers. Your fingers are broken.
Hold on, I've got Kate, you got Dave, you got Jeanette, and yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. As usual, those that are in the comments, feel free to ask questions. I'm now going to hand it over to Bob and Vince for them to introduce themselves. Over to you guys.
Hi, I'm Bob. How you doing? Yeah, I'm Bob, and I am from North Bend, Washington. And my good friend Vince over here, who runs a site called Pacific North Weird, is here, and he's an awesome guy. We recently had a Bigfoot real or hoax event that Vince and the Lewis County Museum and Jason Matson and Tyler Bounds, Cliff Barrickman put together. And it was a wonderful event, and it was a fundraiser for the Lewis County Museum. And so many things came to light during that event. And I think today we're going to really focus on some of that information, especially Vince's hard work. He and Tyler and Jason, they worked really hard for, 3-4 years, maybe 3 years, decoding and just putting together puzzle pieces from some very famous pop culture Bigfoot events. And I think that's what people want to hear about today. And I'm pretty sure he's ready to tell.
Beautiful, beautiful. So yeah,
Could not have done it better myself. Well done, Bob. Hats off to you, my friend.
we need to get Bob his own private intro.
Yeah, we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Passing over to you, Vince. Go for it.
Hey, everything Bob said is true. I'm Vince. And I run a show called Pacific North Weird. And actually for the last 5 years, I've been on different levels of intensity, into the researching this really interesting story that basically takes place in my backyard, as it were. So I grew up in kind of the Lewis County, Thurston County area of Washington State, very forested region, and I've always really liked telling bizarre historic stories pertaining to the Pacific Northwest. That's what gives, that's my passion. That's what makes me really happy. And 5 years ago, Jason Matson of the Lewis County Historical Museum notified me that this something really strange and wonderful was donated to the museum. And what this donation was were 3 audio cassettes.
All right.
Now, those of you who might be listening, audio cassettes were
Yeah. Don't really know what it does now.
you know, that we used to listen to.
We're all
back in the
showing
day.
our age here now, aren't we?
Yeah.
People
So-
will never get the significance of an audio cassette and a pencil, because that was the quickest way to rewind an audio cassette. Put it in and spin it around.
I think you need something bigger than a number 2, though. This isn't really. Oh, that's
Yeah.
doing the trick, actually.
I like how we all mentioned age and all of us sort of shifted. Like, yeah, we're not old enough to remember them, but we are.
I'm so old. I have vintage writing utensils on my desk.
Pencil, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, luckily, didn't have to do any of that to these cassettes. They were in pretty good working order for as old as they were. So what excited me about these cassettes that were donated to the museum was that they were home audio interviews with this man named Rant Mullins. These interviews were recorded late 1982, early 1983 in his home in Toledo, Washington, which is in Lewis County.
Yeah.
I knew Rant Mullins, the name, peripherally up to that point. I knew that he was involved in some sort of Bigfoot hoaxing drama that took place in that area some decades ago. I didn't know much more other than that. So I get the cassettes and I'm pretty excited about it because, you know, these appear to be never before released or really heard by anyone before, and they're connected somehow to the Bigfoot myth in some way. You go down any rabbit hole on the internet, almost every Bigfoot story has been told ad nauseum.
Yeah.
You know, there's not really a lot unless it's like brand new sightings or things. But in terms of like the history of Bigfoot, in terms of the history, I don't know why I'm still holding this pencil. In terms of the history of like the culture of Bigfoot, there's not really a lot of new ground to be charted. So I was pretty excited that potentially I had something that no one had ever heard before. That was something a new piece of the puzzle to add, as it were. So I digitized them and arrange a listening party with my research partner Tyler Bounds, and we dive in, and the cassettes, of course, are immaculate condition for how old they are, like, you know, almost 40 some years at that point. However, like the audio quality was pretty primitive and hard to understand. So we're give you a little backstory. Rant Mullins was born in 1897. So at the time of these recordings, 82 and 83, he's like 85 years old or something. Comes from a really rural community, not a lot of education, and he's got like this old drawl, this country drawl to him, and we found it next to impossible to understand almost a single word that he said. So it was pretty frustrating, and we're like, what are we gonna do about this? We could pick out words here and there.
Yeah.
We listened to all 3 hours it amounted to, kind of just listening and trying to hear the word Bigfoot. Like, is he even going to talk about this Bigfoot hoaxing thing that he's infamous for? And we get to the last side of the third cassette, and we're almost completely dejected at this point because, like, no mention of Bigfoot. We can kind of tell he's talking about a long, interesting life in Western Washington. We hear him mention, like, remembering when the Titanic sunk, President Herbert Hoover at some point. So, like, very relevant, interesting historic documents here. But we wanted the money shot. We wanted Bigfoot. And finally, last 13 minutes of the second side of the third cassette, the woman who's interviewing him, she says, "Well, Rant, while I have you here, we might as well talk about Bigfoot." And we're like, holy cow, here it is. So we pay real attention to what's coming up next. We're picking up a few words here and there, but it is like mush mouth. You know, it's literally like that. It sounds like a Boomhauer from King of the Hill.
Yeah,
I think that's his name. Yeah, the mumbly guy. And we're like, okay, we need to do a complete, detailed, exhaustive transcription to these 13 minutes if we are going to even hope to release them or do anything with them. So over the next, man, it seems like maybe 2.5, 3 years, we went over those 13 minutes bit by bit. We would write down what we think he's saying. We would like listen to it over and over again. I would have other people listen. Can you understand what this word is here? You know, and about 3 years later, we finally were confident enough in our transcription to do a release of those 13 minutes on our YouTube channel, and that was a great moment. But why I'm here today and why this story still exists in my life is the content of those 13 minutes. He gets into this amazing story about how in 1930 he's a Forest Service ranger in Washington State, and he's a young man at that point, like 33 or something, and he's working in the forest. He hears about some huckleberry pickers somewhere near the vicinity of where he's working, and it was in a place called Dry Gulch, which no longer exists on the map since the eruption of Mount St. Helens in 1980. So it just does not exist anymore. But at the time, there were some huckleberry pickers there, and Rant and some friends have this idea to have a little fun, as he puts it. And Rant carves out from a piece of alderwood these two wooden enlarged feet, and he attaches poles to each of them. And he sends his friend out to where the huckleberry pickers are camping, and his friend leaves these large footprints all around the campsite. So according to Rant, the next day the huckleberry pickers freak out. They go to the forest ranger out of breath, telling them what they found, and they just get the hell out of there. And this is 1930. The word Bigfoot isn't even a thing. The word Sasquatch had not been, like an accepted term in the American vernacular. All Rant really had to go on was legends from indigenous communities, things like that. So like no real substantial cultural Bigfoot legend to draw from. So flash forward to about nearly 30 years later, there's this other gentleman living in Toledo, Washington named Ray Wallace. Now, Ray Wallace should be a name more familiar to people in the Bigfoot world. Wallace was possibly the most notorious Bigfoot hoaxer to ever exist. This guy had a logging company and worked all up and down the west coast of the United States, Washington, Oregon, Northern California. Wallace was there in Bluff Creek, California in 1957 when this tractor operator named Jerry Crew found like these large footprints around the work site. He filled them with plaster, made some casts. The newspaper reporting on that story introduced the term Bigfoot.
Right.
So like Wallace was in the thick of it. Wallace would do crazy stuff like claim that he was familiar with the Bigfoot people and would talk to them and feed them apples, and like even claimed once to have captured a adolescent Bigfoot and tried to sell access to it to researcher Peter Byrne for like $25,000. But then like when Byrne offered him 5,000 instead, he's like, oh, I had to let it go because it kept on eating too many frosted flakes and it almost brought me to bankruptcy. He was just a jester. He was just clowning and punking like the entire Bigfoot community. So Ray Wallace is in the thick of it now. According to Rant Mullins, in his testimony, Ray found out about Rant's wooden feet back from the 1930 prank and pretty much begged him to sell him the feet. So Rant gives him the feet. I think he ended up with maybe $100. And then Ray takes the feet apparently down to Northern California. Very next year, boom, Bigfoot is a household term. And I'm sorry, I got the year wrong previously. It was 1958 when the feet were found around the logging site with Ray Wallace. So Rant goes on to explain that Ray wanted more sets of these wooden feet and offered him $1,500 to carve him out 6 additional sets. Now, in today's money, that would be like 16 grand. So that's some really big money there. So Rant carves out the feet, but apparently Ray never pays him the money. And from that miscommunication, I don't know what it was, this decades-long feud was born between the two men based on, just wooden Bigfoot feet. It's one of the weirdest small town feuds I have ever heard about. And it's just based on Bigfoot hoaxing. So that element of the story just really grabbed me. And decades pass, Ray Wallace just becomes infamous, notorious within the Bigfoot community. And by the late 70s, Rant Mullins had just had enough. And from our research, we've gathered that he was so angry at Ray that he decides to enact this weird revenge on him. And the way he does this is, okay, if Wallace is getting famous off of Bigfoot, the myth that I created, I'm going to burn the whole house down. I'm going to pull the rug out from under Wallace and say that Bigfoot doesn't exist. And how do I know that? Because I created him. So he goes to the newspapers with it, and within 3 years or so, Rant Mullins is on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather, explaining how he created the myth some 50 years ago in 1930. And this is his way of getting vengeance on Ray Wallace. It's almost Shakespearean when you think of it. You have like this Rant Mullins as like this tragic figure that just feels that he's getting the short end of the stick constantly, and his rival, the much more popular Ray Wallace, is just beloved and adored, and some say tolerated within the Bigfoot community. And so like Rant, like this Richard III bitter old creature, decides to just enact like this bizarre revenge, but it doesn't turn out the way he had hoped it would, because like he got a little bit of press there. There was even a newspaper writer from the Los Angeles Times who went and visited Toledo and did a story on like this small town feud, and Wallace wasn't really taking it seriously, but he did say that like he wouldn't sit with his back to an open door over fears that like Rant would come in and shoot him, and he described Rant as like this aging Wyatt Earp. The Lewis County sheriff even once stopped Rant Mullins in downtown Toledo and frisked him to see if he had any firearms on him. So like it got sort of serious, but when you look at Bigfoot history now, you open up any book about hoaxing and everything, look in the index. Ray Wallace's name is mentioned like a dozen times. Mullins is like 1 or 2 times. He's still like a footnote in the shadow of Wallace. So it's a comedic story, but there's a tragic element to this. And once we put the transcription out a few years ago, I kind of just I didn't forget about the story, but I pushed it aside because I had other projects. But when Tyler and I were invited to speak at this event in Chehalis that Bob and Cliff were at, we went back to the research, started going into the story more, and I really wanted to pull a few more pieces together. I felt like I had improved the transcription a little bit. There was additional information and historic resources I had found, and in that, in refamiliarizing myself with this story, it occurred to me like there's a wonderful documentary here. Like this is one of the most unique, absurd, tragic, comical stories I have ever heard. And there are people still around this area who remember these gentlemen. And there's elements that like we have access to that like no one else has access to. With this Rant Mullins interview, we essentially have an interview from beyond the grave. We have Rant Mullins speaking for himself. I've been speaking with members of the Wallace family about them helping out. Things are starting to happen. I don't want to make too many promises right now because I'm still sort of in the exploratory mode of like what this documentary, what this video, what this project could be. I don't know what it could be yet. I just know like I need to do it. I know I have a passion for the story, and I think in the unique position that myself and my friend Tyler find ourselves, we're the only ones who can really tell it and really pull all these elements together in and really tell just a classic absurd tale of revenge with Bigfoot as the backdrop. Because it's not really a Bigfoot story. It's a human story about like human passions that just happens to have Bigfoot as the background.
That is pretty cool, man. That is pretty cool. Let me know when that comes out, because I think all of us, including people in the chat, would be willing to sit and watch that.
I just find it amazing that there's actually people out there that their sole purpose in life is to cause hoaxes and to bring like that sort of question into something that people are so passionate about.
Well, you think, I don't know if you guys in America get them, but in England we had a massive issue with crop circles.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a really interesting comparison.
Well, my parcel, guys.
Yeah, no, because we did. We had this massive thing where there was all these crop circles popping up, and then you had these people that were so passionate. They this guy come out in the news, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm with the lawnmower."
Yeah, or they do like the big
Okay.
plywood boards and the ropes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I just don't understand why anyone would want to make it their passion.
Yeah.
Something that's really bugs me, bothers me. It's a proper, makes my skin crawl that people would do things like that. It's just, you know, let people who are passionate about things, leave them to be passionate about it. You haven't got to stop their parade all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. Me parcel came. So
And to make it clear, Cliff Barackman, made the announcement that Bigfoot is real, and he provided, evidence. He did a very wonderful presentation, and he showcased some of his evidence. So Cliff Barackman, I think it's 12 seasons. He was on Finding Bigfoot, and basically he has a museum in Boring, Oregon. If you ever want to if you ever visit this area, visit the North American Bigfoot Center in Boring, Oregon. And Cliff and his wife run that. And so they have so much there. They have even a case where footprints were left on a mattress on the side of the road. That one is just spectacular. But hair samples and, photographs. And yeah, I just wanted to make that clear, because even though Vince is talking about famous hoaxers, the event wasn't saying that Bigfoot is fake. So there you go. Just wanted to throw that in.
it's not the same I was saying. Just sorry, guys, before I ran out.
Yeah.
With the crop circles, we've had massive sprees. We still get them now, sprees of crop circles. And there was a very famous bloke who was going around faking crop circles.
Oh, wow.
And he got caught out in I think it was the early 70s. And he even turned around and said, yeah, I've been faking some, but the other ones are a bit more complex and not me, and they're not possible to be faked by us by the technique we were using. And all he was using was standard tape measure and a 2x4 timber with ropes on the end. Just going along stomping.
Wow.
Really cool question. I want to put up to you guys, Vince and Bob. I know I'm jumping all over. I'm stomping all over Ben's breaks. It's his show, but this
No, it's cool, man.
Paul Rogan McDade, he asks, what's people's thoughts on the connection between Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings in the same areas? Are they, or could they be connected?
Sorry, guys, can I just jump in quick? Paul, it is glad to see you back. Paul is a very good friend of mine. He's been very ill. It's nice to see him back on his feet, actually enjoying the show. Nice to have you back.
So what's you both of you, Bob, Vince, what's your take on, because there is that correlation between sightings of Bigfoot and UFO sightings, even down to the point there has been some theorems out there, people actually saying that Bigfoot is either a time traveling entity or an extraterrestrial entity. What's your takes on that?
Yeah, there are a lot of stories out there. There's a lot of different variations. And I think there is, if you look at some of the reports, a lot of times you'll see simultaneous references to orbs of light. I know Cliff kind of makes fun of that stuff, but there really are people that see orbs and objects in the sky connected with Bigfoot sightings. I know there's a famous one up in Snohomish, and it's kind of silly, this one. And maybe, Vince, you can remember this particular story. I don't have it in front of me, but the story goes that in the 70s, someone in Snohomish saw a UFO hovering over the trees, and then these beings were coming down out of the UFO, like in a beam of light. And some of them were described as Sasquatch or Chewbacca-looking creatures. And there's a sculpture up in that area that commemorates this famous sighting. Does this ring a bell, Vince, at all?
Vaguely, but I feel you've already said more than I remember about it.
Yeah, I wish I had it in front of me, but
I've heard that story, believe it or not, on Ancient Aliens.
okay, all right.
Mentioned on that, they did an entire episode of the link between Bigfoot and UFOs.
Okay.
And it was mentioned on there that there'd been a sighting of some, like, as they said, like Yetis being dropped off and Bigfoot's being dropped off outside a UFO, and then it'd fly off and then come back a couple of hours later and pick them up.
Yeah. I mean, there's also that theory that Bigfoot is an interdimensional being. Like Kate just put up here, she said, I've heard that Bigfoot comes through and a portal and then leaves through it. He just comes to grab loot for his other dimension. Like, there's so many different theories about around Bigfoot. Also, the
Yeah.
link with Bigfoot and the missing 411 sightings as well. And that sort of reared its head quite recently because people have been making these sort of connections. But I think that's more, to me, I think that's more coincidence because most of the missing 411 are in these giant national parks, and most of the sightings for Bigfoot are in these giant national parks. Okay, I know there's like Ben was saying, Ben brought up before that, like these ancient cave maps that sort of link to these Bigfoot sightings and that. But there's so many theories around it. I mean, what position do you guys take when it comes to Bigfoot? What do you believe it is?
I can go first really quick. I believe it's a spiritual being. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I believe it's a spiritual being and it has the ability to come into this reality as a physical being, but it is spiritual and it can travel back and forth. Now, I base my opinion on, indigenous beliefs and working with tribes and my wife's tribe. And so I take very seriously the Native American point of view on it. But I'm very open and we're very open to all different points of view. I love to hear, different opinions on that subject. And I also like skeptics. I like Cliff because he's very skeptical and he's very scientific and he challenges a lot of those beliefs. And that's really healthy and good to have the devil's advocate, And so I'd love to hear, I've never actually heard Vince's opinion. I've actually never heard it. So I'm looking forward to this. What do you think, Vince?
I think I consider myself a Bigfoot agnostic.
Oh,
If I'm just being completely frank with everyone.
that's all good.
Oh,
I'm so disappointed. God damn it.
It was squaring up for that argument. You can see it was squaring up for a good old debate here. You just diffused it.
So so my wife and I, we like watching those true crime murder shows like on TV, like Dateline or whatever, where they walk through like this weird, bizarre like murder, and then they walk through about the suspect being captured and then the trial. And my wife has lamented to me that she doesn't know how she would be on a jury because after she hears the prosecution lay their case out, she's like, well, of course this person did it. But then after she hears the defense lay their case out, she's like, well, maybe he didn't. I don't know if I could vote guilty. I kind of feel the same way with Bigfoot. Like when I hear Cliff talk about like the science aspect of it and how like, well, the evidence is overwhelming that Bigfoot exists. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, maybe. But then like I hear a well argued skeptical take on Bigfoot, and I'm like, oh yeah, well maybe that person's right. So like I that's why I call myself a Bigfoot agnostic. I'm sort of just I don't know. I hear stories on both ends that sound very valid, but I'm one of those people where if you set me down, you put the interrogation light on me and say, do you know Bigfoot exists? I can't say that because I don't, because I have not seen anything like that.
Nice.
So that's my answer to that. I like talking about it. I like thinking and daydreaming about the possibility if there's this rugged, hairy, beautiful man out of the woods eating squirrels and trying to save the environment. But
brilliant. That is awesome.
That's a fair answer, to be honest. I'd agree with that. It's a fair answer. A lot of people are saying
he could be on Tinder. Bigfoot could be on Tinder. We just don't know yet. We just haven't managed to get to him yet.
it happens. Someone's going to be panicking.
I'd swipe right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the chat room's quite lit up at the minute with people. To be fair, it's quite nice to see. So we've got Tyler on.
Hello,
We've got the one and only Wild Bill.
Wild Bill.
Chris from Ghost Hunters. Stoke
Oh,
Hunters, Ghost on Trent.
That's the one.
Hey, hey, hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Kate obviously on, Jeanette's on, Christine's on. Nice to see you, Christine. Sorry, guys, we're just catching up on everyone.
Oh,
Oh,
Kate,
no, Daddy left the room.
question, by the way.
Don't know who this is, but hello.
New viewer?
New viewer, welcome along.
You right, Patsy? Put Kate's question up, the one above that one, because I think
Yeah.
that's
Brilliant question from Kate, as always. What's been the most recent legit piece of evidence of Bigfoot? And I'll tell you one thing, it wasn't me going to get a new boot. Everyone looked like they was in a trance then trying to remember.
when it comes to the most piece of evidence for Bigfoot, right? I was listening to a podcast the other day. I listened to this podcast called Those Conspiracy Guys. It's done by Gordon Rochford. They're an Irish group, and they do like 4 or 5 hours sort of podcasts. And they done one on Bigfoot, and they brought up that evidence. I don't know what it's exactly called, but there are like it's almost like EVP recordings of like this Sasquatch that's making these really loud noises.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I don't know if that was recent or not, but I mean, when I heard that that sort of changed my mind, and I was like, okay, because I swear there's a point in that recording where he's making these noises, and the supposed Sasquatch is actually repeating the same sounds that he's making.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. There is a specific name for it. I can't remember it. I've got a brain like a sieve. Just remember, guys, I'm from a place in Essex in England where everybody's orange and they can't tell the time. So please bear that in mind, okay?
Right, Damon, I've got you back. It's the vocalizations.
Okay.
The vocalizations and the hitting of trees that are known for Bigfoot calling.
Yeah, that's the one. That's definitely the one.
Mm-hmm. I used to be a massive Bigfoot fan when I was younger.
Oh,
Cool.
Yeah, in terms of recent research, honestly, it's not something I follow too much. Like I'm into all kinds of things, UFOs, haunted places, Bigfoot. An eclectic buffet of weird party topics, and throughout all of them, there's very little like nuts and bolts modern research I keep up with, because I really don't consider myself a researcher in terms of I'm trying to figure out if these things exist or not. That's not really where I'm at. I love the cultural history of these things. Real or not, UFOs, Bigfoot, all this stuff, it has completely impacted and changed our culture and the way we think, the way we interact with each other on a certain level. And I love the historic stories. I love the human interest element to these things. That's where I feel like I really excel at in terms of research, in terms of my knowledge. I hear things here and there that are interesting, that I'd like to know more about. But if you were to ask me, like, what's the biggest Bigfoot story to come out of 2022, I don't know.
Yeah. So
if you want to talk to me about the animated Hanna-Barbera cartoon Laverne and Shirley Go to the Army, and how they have an episode where they encounter Bigfoot, I can talk to you about that all you want.
Okay.
Oh, what was it?
Just a random stuff. It's not really off, but so the film Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. The
Oh,
Beast is actually based on a real life character in history.
Oh wow.
He had too much hair. If you look online and do a bit of research, you'll see that the guy, he had this thing where he just like literally had hair all over him.
Huh.
And you see the portraits that were done, and it was like, I think he's from Spain, but it was bought by some royal family, and like the king, I think it was, I can't remember where. Sorry, I read it a few weeks ago, and bits of information have stayed, but not all. Yeah, like the king sort of took him on, and sort of like, actually, this guy's really intelligent, like, you know, educated him and everything. And then the king, when he died, his wife decided, I'm going to marry off this guy that's really hairy to some other woman and try and breed more really hairy children. So just where I'm going with that is just like randomly, do you think that there is sort of like a subspecies of humans with this genetic hair deformity that could possibly be something to do with that?
Well, the
Probably
genetic,
not, but it's just the thought that went through my head. And I was just thinking, oh, hairy, Bigfoot, yeah, the beast. I wonder if Bigfoot would be.
Lou,
Well,
I
I
did.
think it.
I literally, I told you this story out of confidence that you wouldn't share it online. All right. A problem, and I have to groom every 15 minutes. But I told you in confidence. I feel like you've broke that confidence at the moment now.
no, genetic wise, there is an actual genetic.
Yeah.
I don't want to say mutation because it's quite rude to the people that have it, but yeah, condition where it is that they do grow hair massively.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the tragic history of the carnival freak shows, you know, that would happen, and I feel like any piece of folklore exists as an amalgamation of all kinds of different stories.
Yeah.
So I think there are all kinds of historic anecdotes, retellings of stories and myths. All these things make up our modern conceptions of folklore and mysteries. Say there is a Bigfoot out in the woods of the Northwest. It's not going to be like what everyone thinks it's going to be like. We all have like this culturally defined version of what it's supposed to be in our heads. No matter like how researched one might be, we are influenced by culture. Like unless you're living under a rock, you know, we are influenced by Disney movies, by TV shows. Just we're influenced by living within a community and hearing people's stories.
So,
oh, go ahead.
That's a go.
Oh wow. Oh, that's cool. Does look like Damon.
His name was Petrus Gonsalves, from born in 1537 in Spain.
That's really interesting.
Always spoke like Vince was saying. We've always spoke about this on the shows. Whenever me and Ben and Lou we do a show, we always say there is most of the stories that are told today. There is no. It's all based around a fact, but it's an embellished fact. So, for instance, we talk about Bigfoot like it could have just been an extremely hairy man, and then over the years, the story's just been embellished and embellished to the point where we've created our own reality through almost a form of Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
Chinese whispers?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
You've got folklore that turns into myth, that turns into legend, that turns into that. But
at school in England, we used to play it. So you'd all sit in a circle of like a class of 30, and the first person would whisper to the next person something. Then by the time we got to the last one, it would be completely different to what the first person has said.
Yeah, I know that as the telephone game. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just
awesome.
how
and
things change when people sort of embellish stories, don't they? You know, like everyone does it. You'll get a black eye from the weekend because you've been punched by, I don't know, a really small woman. And by the time you get to work, when it gets to Friday, the person who punched you was 6'7", built like an actual block of flats, like a house. But you won't tell everybody it's a very small person that hit you. So,
and that's just one thread of the story. What if your coworker sees your black eye and hears something different? Then that's a completely different thing that's been thrown into the pot. And
weapon there.
like with something as dynamic and universal almost as like Bigfoot, and it's like much older than the 50s. You know, like the idea of the wild man in the woods is almost completely universal around the entire planet. You know, so like it's not merely one thread that gets embellished to create a pop culture folklore sort of image of a valid mystery, but it is 10,000 different threads coming from different directions that create a modern conception.
I agree completely.
So on that note, right now in the Snoqualmie Valley, we are following some cold cases, true crime. This is not Bigfoot, but it's an example of what we were just talking about. So, you know, my wife and I've been collecting stories for 30 plus years, but every variation of a crime scene, you know, you have the police report, but then you have all these folk tales that are told around town about what really happened, but everything is valuable. And so you don't throw anything away, because very well could be that the police report has been tampered with or the evidence has been tampered with. So sometimes the eyewitnesses or the folk tales have little bits of information that can lead to the truth. And that could be applied to the Bigfoot story as well. And this is very specific. So right now we are working with some journalists who have come to the area. And actually, in fact, they have a history at BBC in London, some of these journalists. And they are doing I can't give it all away yet. It's just early production. But we are following some unsolved murders in my hometown. And these are things that have left people in a lot of pain because they haven't had justice or resolution. And so we are revisiting the evidence, and we are going over every little folk tale that's told about these certain murders. And it reminds me very much of the quest for finding, you know, Bigfoot or information about Sasquatch. But we enjoy, you know, collecting this information. It's so valuable. And in fact, I have, you know, a lot of it written down in front of me here. It's something that we do. Very passionate about it. Yep.
Bob, that is going to be the smoothest plug for a future show I've never seen anyone ever do.
What was that? I can't understand you.
That was just like right in there. That was brilliant.
Oh, I'm brilliant. I know I am. No, I'm just kidding.
Yep, Bob, your avenues of research always really thrill me.
Thank you so much.
So the funny thing is, the one thing that always pops up on the show, whenever Bob pops in and goes, "Hi, everybody," everyone just puts the word legend as soon as he comes into the chat room.
Oh,
he's just
that's so sweet.
Always so welcome on the show. It's great.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you so much.
No, you're both always welcome on the show, Vince.
Oh yeah.
We're running down to the last 10 minutes, but Vince, what a hell of a story to come and tell us. It's brilliant. Anytime you want to come on the show with more info, just honestly drop us a message. We'll get you on.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah.
We'll also post your link into the page as well, so people can go over and check your stuff out as well.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, it's pacificnorthweird.com. That'll bring you right to our YouTube page. And yeah, no, I'm really excited about this project. It's been a while since I've told a really good story. And you know, I knew, like, coming on here, I was like, okay, this will be like really good practice for me to tell the story, because I know if I'm going to be making a video, I'm going to have to pitch this 100 times in the future. But I was hoping like I would get like maybe like some ideas I hadn't thought of. And your comment about the crop circle hoaxings, it's an avenue I have not even considered yet. and that I took a note. I wrote a note down because of that. So like you've already helped me improve my research, because I'm like, well, that's a heck of an anecdotal corollary that I can maybe examine.
So Vince, do you want to tell them a little bit about the Patterson-Gimlin connection and the reference in the letter? Because I know that's public now, and you could probably talk about it. Because a lot of people know that film, the famous film. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, the famous film from October 20th, 1967. Two cowboys, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, filmed a lady Sasquatch walking through this rugged wilderness of Northern California. It's the image everyone knows of Bigfoot. You know,
it's the most famous video going, guys. Everyone would have seen this at some point.
Right, right. So like that has its Washington connections. Bob Gimlin was from Yakima, and I think Patterson was too, actually. So anyway, that film was taken in pretty close proximity to where Ray Wallace supposedly made his Bigfoot hoaxing prints some 10 years earlier in the late 50s. And there had always been like some suspicion that, you know, did Ray have anything to do with the Patterson-Gimlin film? Was he in the costume? Did he know someone who was in the costume? Was it a hoax? It's a controversial subject for sure. But there's some handwritten letters that are actually donated to the Lewis County Museum as well. And these are letters from Ray Wallace to Rant Mullins. And you can kind of see the course of their friendship deteriorating, you know, over the years as these letters come. But there was one he sent to Rant a few years after the Patterson-Gimlin footage, where he's like, I'm just as mad at you that Roger Patterson is getting famous off of this phony Bigfoot movie, and I'm going to help you prove that it was a hoax. He doesn't say how he's going to do that, but he does. It does seem that the Patterson-Gimlin footage was a point of consortium. Is that the right word? Between the two.
Yeah.
And just another really interesting connection to the weird timeline of Bigfoot history, where you find Rant and Ray somehow mixed up in it, and the story goes way deeper than I've even said right here. Like it's multifaceted. There's other huge Bigfoot events like the Ape Canyon attack of 1924 that supposedly Rant Mullins claimed that he was behind that as well. But that's a whole nother thing.
That's crazy.
It refers to a rubber suit, doesn't it? In that letter, it refers to I think I remember seeing a quote, his rubber suit, something about a rubber suit. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember the
video.
Yeah, I might have the letter right here.
Everyone.
Yeah, why don't you read that, sucker? Because that is so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not micromanaging you. I'm sorry, but anyway.
Oh yeah, no, I love talking about these guys because they are such larger than life characters. Like Wallace, you know, outside of the Bigfoot thing, he owned a petting zoo, like south of Chehalis, where he had Alaskan reindeer and buffalo that you could go and just pet and ride, and like it was shut down because they're like, you can't own rare animals like that, have people ride them. You know, absolutely insane. I love it. But the letter Bob is referring to. Sorry, I don't mean to eat up all the time here.
Oh, this should be like the ideal thing to end on. So if we run over, we run over.
Yeah, it's all good.
If I find it.
That's the thing about when you find yourself down one of the rabbit holes where you're
right.
You just, everything's all like Bob said, he's got it all on his desk now. And like if someone was to come in and move something, they're like, oh my god, I had that in an order. What are you for? Like, you know,
organized chaos.
It was just
here we go. Okay, I'll read a few excerpts from this letter.
Go for it.
Dear Rant, I received your threatening letter in the mail. Did you know it's dangerous business writing threatening letters and sending them through the mail? I have told you many times that I am not in with Roger Patterson on his phony Bigfoot movie.
Ooh.
Only you and I can prove this. And if you are mad at me to where I can't even talk to you without you getting mad at me, how can you and I prove anything at all? I am as mad as you are because Patterson is getting rich off of his phony Bigfoot movie. And
It's fight talk, that is. That is definitely fight talk. He's like, yeah, in the park after the movie, me and you outside, let's go for it.
yeah, Bob, he does say something where he's talking, where he's relaying a story, a conversation he had with Roger Patterson, and he's saying like, I told him that it looks like an oversized gorilla, but it's not what that film looks like. I don't see anywhere here where he's specifically referring to a rubber suit.
Okay. All right.
But yeah,
It is crazy when you think about it, because like I said, the Patterson video is just so remotely famous. It's so massive. And I think because we have it nowadays where influencers will try and take out other influencers to try and grab their sort of like the people that watch them. So as much better could be them being truthful, you can also look at it as a fact of, you know, are they trying to steal this person's thunder sort of thing? Do you know what I mean?
right. Yeah. Oh, I wish Rant Mullins and Ray Wallace had been alive to have TikTok profiles.
Oh yeah,
that would be amazing.
that would be legendary.
Would be brilliant. That would be brilliant.
That would be cool.
But yeah, so guys, it has been a pleasure having you guys on. We've got to get you on again at some point in the future.
I had a blast. Thank you.
No, we're glad you enjoyed it. It's been brilliant. It has been very brilliant. Bob,
Definitely.
as always, it's been a pleasure having you on as well.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, love it. Anytime.
We've definitely got to get Bob on the Friday show to do a show on Native American stuff, because I am being literally badgered constantly about doing a show on Native American beliefs and the thing about the spirit animals and how Native Americans are such a spiritual concept. I think it'd be a great show on. So I've definitely got to arrange a time to do that with you, Bob, if that's okay.
Yeah, and a lot of times what we do, my wife and I work as a team, is we kind of clarify certain things and misconceptions. So like, and maybe a way to approach culture in a good way so that it doesn't anger anyone, and we educate people, because a lot of people have no clue, you know, how to speak on some of these subjects. So part of what we do as a service, and a lot of the Native community really appreciate it, is just educate people on like, okay, this is this. Don't ever say this, you know, because there are things that a lot of people don't understand. So I'd be glad to do that in an educational way and help folks maybe have conversations about it, because some people can't even begin to have a conversation about it. So I'd be glad to.
We must trade a bit of information as well, Bob.
What's that?
I say it'd be nice to trade some information as well. I've got a friend of mine who's First Nation.
Okay.
Yeah, be a good show, that would.
And Vince, the show, absolutely phenomenal storytelling. I was literally gripped from the moment you started to the moment you finished. So I reckon your YouTube video, don't panic, I reckon it's going to be absolutely phenomenal, because it gripped me, and I've got the attention span of a ferret. So definitely it's going
to... and ferrets are my biggest audience. Thank you so much.
As soon as it's ready, mate, get it on. Send us a link, send it by message or anything. We'll get it straight up on our Facebook, our page, and we'll spread it out amongst all the other things. And just to bring that in here, guys, as you've all noticed, the other dimension has become rather big. We are now in conjunction with another Facebook page called Embrace the Darkness. Embrace the Dark?
Yeah.
Oh, it's called Embrace the Darkness.
Embrace the Dark Paranormal.
Embrace the Dark Paranormal.
They've been friends of ours for quite a while, but we've decided to start to actually do more stuff working together.
Yeah.
Same with the Night Beyond the Grave. Known them for years and years. Yeah,
Yeah.
so excited.
We're also
Papers and stuff together, sharing stuff.
Sweet.
we're also in partnership as well with Haunted Museum, and that in conjunction brings us in partnership with Wednesbury Paranormal as well. This network that we have now has become rather big, bigger than we all intended it to be.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Definitely.
it's brilliant, and we are spreading out.
Literally, I got a message from Lou earlier. Right, we need to do this. I'm like, right, okay, I'm on it now. I'm like, getting things done. I'm like, right, let's go for it. So yeah, they'll all be advertised soon. We'll get it all advertised. But yeah.
And for an update on last night's bugger up, for those of you who've got me on Facebook, personally on Facebook, and for those of you that haven't noticed, me and Lou went to go watch The Pope's Exorcist last night.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Date night.
Wearing my jumper. Brilliant. Put my jumper off because it's too hot, as you do.
You still got it on?
Yes, yeah,
You haven't changed.
well, not properly yet.
Take it off. Oh yeah, take it off.
The first shirt you've got on,
Demons. What does that say?
demons everywhere.
Wow. Okay.
Stood in the middle of the cinema, stood up, and then everyone looked at me.
It's crazy one.
Did you say "Hail Satan" or anything like that?
No, I just kind of looked, smiled, and walked off.
Oh boy.
But on that note, guys, Wednesday we have
Witch's Closet.
Witch's Closet. Yeah, talking about sigils. That's the one. I will be bombarding and jumping on that one for once.
Ben gets excited for this kind of thing.
Yeah. And then Friday's show, we've not decided some.
Not yet.
Have we all know?
If I get round to The Pope's Exorcist, we might do a review on that if I get round to it. I'm off work Thursday, Friday. I'm having
Damon will be going to the cinema to watch this.
Of course I will. 100%. I always go to the cinema to watch every movie I watch. I don't use any sort of back alley websites to watch any movies. That's not things like
Just smile.
We'll also be doing one on a documentary that I recently watched, and also a UFO sighting that I really do enjoy the original story of, and that is the Sky on Fire, which was about a logging crew where one of the guys got got kidnapped by a UFO and was returned 5 days later with no knowledge whatsoever.
And then on Sunday's show.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting to be by Kate on
Sunday. On Sunday.
You'll have to send that to me, but this time please send it on a safe link because I don't know.
I've sent you the link.
Right, Ben actually sent me a link to watch a documentary one, the one about Bob Lazar, right? And when I opened it, I literally got a message on my phone saying the federal agents will be at your house within 20 minutes. Please be ready to be arrested. So I cracked my pants.
Yeah.
Truly.
I think, Vince, you knew which one I was on about because you were shaking your head then about
the Travis Walton story.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll actually be seeing him next month. My wife and I are going to the Menemin's UFO Festival in McMinnville, Oregon, and Travis is going to be one of the speakers.
His story is massive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
To a T. It is, in my eyes, it is on the same par as Bonnie and Clyde. Is it Bonnie and Clyde?
Betty and Barney Hill.
That's it. Benny and Barney Hill. Yeah, sorry, wrong couple.
That was good.
With they're not going into full subjects onto UFOs, but their abduction became massively famous when they gave the coordinates for Sirius B before anyone had even mapped it. But yes, so that's what's coming up.
It's Bonnie and Clyde, though.
I know, I proper screwed that up.
Yeah.
Bonnie and Clyde do aliens.
I would watch that movie.
That was good.
Like Bonnie and Clyde versus the Martians.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be excellent.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, we shall see you all in the week. So it's goodbye from us, goodbye from Damon, goodbye from our very special guests. We hope you've enjoyed it. So if there's no other out, I'm not even going to try.
Don't
I'm
do
just
it.
going to
Don't
stop.
do it.
I'm just going to stop. I will let Damon do it as it's his piece.
Just remember, guys, if there's no other explanation, there is always the other dimension.